The night the fire broke out, the city slept under a blanket of rain and neon. Most people were safe inside their warm homes, but beneath the bridge on Maple Street, Lena huddled under a torn blanket with a paper cup beside her, trying to stay dry. She wasn't supposed to be there. Just a year ago she had a job, an apartment, a life. Then the layoffs came, then the rent hikes, and then the silence from people who once called her friend. Now, her only company was the rhythmic sound of raindrops and the hum of cars passing above. That was when she smelled smoke. At first, she thought it was just someone's trash fire nearby, until she looked across the street and saw flames licking through the windows of the small, old apartment building. Screams pierced the night. Without thinking, she ran. The front door was already engulfed, so she climbed the fire escape, barefoot, her hands gripping the icy metal railings. Windows shattered from the heat. The third floor was choking with black smoke. Through the noise, she heard it, a child crying. "Help! Mommy, help me!" The voice came from behind a locked door. Lena coughed, trying to stay low, her lungs burning. She kicked at the door once, twice, 3 times, until it gave way. Inside, a little boy was curled up under a desk, his small body trembling. "It's okay, sweetheart," she said, her voice hoarse. "We have to go now. I can't find my teddy." He sobbed. "We'll find him later, I promise." She wrapped him in a blanket from the bed, pressed him to her chest and ran. By the time she reached the stairwell, the flames were closing in. The railing burned her hand, but she didn't stop. She covered the boy's face with her scarf and pushed forward through the smoke, her heartbeat pounding louder than the sirens approaching outside. When they burst out the back door, firefighters were rushing in. She placed the boy in the arms of a paramedic and collapsed onto the wet pavement, coughing uncontrollably. "Ma'am, you need oxygen!" someone shouted, but she shook her head weakly. "He's okay. The boy's okay." And then everything went black. When Lena woke up, she was in a hospital bed, hooked to an IV. Her throat hurt, her hands were bandaged, and her clothes and what little she had were gone. The nurse smiled softly. "You're very lucky, miss." "You inhaled a lot of smoke." Lena blinked groggily. "The boy, is he safe?" The nurse nodded. "He's fine. He keeps asking for you." Relief washed over her like warm water. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank God." What she didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that the little boy she saved was Ethan Cole, the only son of Nathan Cole, a reclusive billionaire CEO known for his cold precision and untouchable world. Hours later, the hospital's quiet hum broke with the sound of expensive shoes on linoleum. Nurses turned their heads as a tall man in a black coat entered, eyes sharp, movements controlled, surrounded by 2 security guards. Nathan Cole didn't visit hospitals. He sent donations, built wings, funded programs, but he never visited until tonight. "Where is she?" he asked the nurse, his voice low but urgent. "Sir, she's still resting. I need to see her, please." Something in his tone made her nod silently. When he entered the room, Lena stirred, half asleep. Her hair was messy, her skin pale, but her hands still bore the marks of fire. For a long moment, Nathan just stood there, speechless. This was the woman who had run into the flames for his son, a stranger, homeless, forgotten by society, and yet braver than anyone he'd ever known. "Miss," he began softly. She opened her eyes and looked at him, confused. "Who are you?" He swallowed. "Nathan Cole, Ethan's father." Her lips parted slightly. "The boy, he's okay?" "He's fine," Nathan said, voice trembling. "Because of you. The doctor said if you hadn't gotten to him when you did." He stopped, unable to finish. Tears gathered in his eyes at something rare, something human. Lena looked down, embarrassed. Anyone would have done the same. "No," he said firmly. No one did. Everyone was standing outside filming. "You were the only one who ran in." She didn't know what to say. He stepped closer. "Do you have somewhere to stay?" Her silence was answer enough. Nathan looked at his assistant. "Book her a room at Rosewood Hotel. Get her clothes, food, everything she needs. Lena shook her head quickly. Please, no. I don't want charity. He looked at her, pain in his eyes. You saved my son's life. This isn't charity, it's gratitude. Over the next few days, she stayed in the hotel room, though she felt out of place among the marble floors and white linens. Every morning, a small knock came at her door, and there stood Ethan, holding a flower or a crayon drawing. This one's for you, he'd say shyly. The third day, he brought her a picture of the fire. Stick figures, a big orange scribble and a blue figure pulling him out. Above it, in a child's handwriting, he'd written, "My hero." Lena broke down crying. When Nathan came later that evening, she tried to hand him the drawing. "Your son is special," she said softly. He shook his head. "He says you are." Then quietly he asked, "Would you join us for dinner?" She hesitated. "I don't think I belong in your world." Nathan's expression softened. "Then let me come into yours." Dinner turned into conversation, conversation into laughter. Nathan learned about her life, how she once worked as a nurse before losing her job, how she'd been saving for a tiny apartment before everything fell apart. And Lena learned about his loneliness, how his wife had died 3 years ago, how he'd been raising Ethan alone while drowning himself in work. They were two broken people from different worlds, one with nothing left to lose, and one who'd forgotten what truly mattered. Weeks passed. Nathan helped Lena get a new nursing job at a clinic his company funded, though she didn't know it at first. She thought it was coincidence. He never treated her like a project. He treated her like someone who had reminded him what it meant to be human. One day, as they stood outside the clinic, Ethan ran up and hugged her legs. "Daddy says heroes don't wear capes," he said proudly. "But I think you do." Lena knelt, smiling through tears. "You just can't see it, little one." Nathan watched them, his heart quietly unraveling. He stepped closer. "Lena, I owe you everything, but I don't just want to repay you." She looked up, startled. "Then what do you want?" He took a breath. "I want to thank you for saving both of us." Her brow furrowed. "Both?" He nodded. "You saved my son's life, and you reminded me that love doesn't end with loss." A year later, the same city that once watched a building burn now watched another miracle, the wedding of a billionaire and the woman who had once slept under a bridge. But to them, titles didn't matter. What mattered was the little boy holding Lena's hand as she walked down the aisle, smiling wider than anyone there. When the vows were over, Ethan tugged at her dress and whispered, "Mommy, you smell like flowers." "Not smoke anymore," she smiled, tears glistening. "That's because love burns brighter than fire." "Sweetheart." And somewhere in the back of the room, someone whispered, "She saved his son that night." But everyone knew the truth. She had saved them all.